Doyle, the author of Mini Mosaic Quilts. Mini Mosaics is a method of piecing small-scale projects and blocks, such as a 3-inch Ohio star, easily and fast and accurately by machine. In a nutshell, Mini Mosaics is all about making tiles and making your project out of these tiles. We have big tiles. Big tiles start out as 1.5-inch square, and when they're stitched, they finish as 1-inch square. And we have little tiles. They start out as 1-inch square, and when they're pieced, they finish as 1/2-inch squares. Plain tiles are just rotary cut squares of fabric. So for example, if you wanted to make a big plain tile, you simply rotary cut a strip of fabric 1.5 inches wide and then cut that up into squares that are 1.5-inch square. If you wanted a little plain tile, again you start with a 1-inch strip and you cut that into 1-inch squares. And for that, we really like to use the June Taylor Shape Cut products. Pieced tiles, on the other hand, are cut from blanks, and the blanks are simply pieced from rotary cut pieces of fabric. And you also use those in conjunction with a freezer paper template. And the freezer paper are merely squares that are cut from freezer paper with your rotary cutter. Again, big tiles would be 1.5 inches square, and little tiles would be 1-inch square. For example, if you wanted to have a half-square triangle tile, you would start out with 2 pieces of fabric that are stitched together with a 1/4-inch seam. Then you would take your freezer paper template and iron it on to your strip of fabric so that the diagonal points of the square touch the seam line. Then you merely cut around the template with your scissors, lift the freezer paper off, and you have a half-square triangle tile, which is the perfect size, doesn't have any dog ears, and won't fray because it's been cut on the bias. If you wanted to have a 1/4 square triangle tile, you would start out by piecing a 4-patch in the usual manner. Again, take your template, line the points of the template up with the seam lines, cut around the template, lift off the freezer paper, and you're left with a perfect 1/4 square triangle tile. Or if you wanted a 1/2 tile, you would start out by piecing what is in essence the center of a log cabin block. Again, line the points of the template up with a seam, cut around it, and you would have the perfect 1/2 square triangle tile. Today I'm going to show you how to make this particular block. So here you start out by making all of the tiles that you need for the block, and I need 25 in this instance. You also need a piece of interfacing, and what I'm using here is a very lightweight fusible interfacing. You want the lightest weight that you can find. The other thing you'll need to make your tiles are the grids, and you need the grid that's appropriate for the size of tile that you're working with. The grids are found in the back of the book as a tearaway, and they are reusable. You simply place them onto your ironing board and overlay them with the fusible interfacing. Make sure that your fusible interfacing is fusible side up. The other thing that you're going to be using is a layout grid so that you can tell where in the grid your tile should go. Once you overlay your grid with the fusible interfacing, you simply position your tiles according to the layout diagram and fuse them in place with the iron until you have all of the tiles that you want in place. Here we are with all 25 tiles positioned on the interfacing, and you will notice that there is a little bit of space left between these tiles because of the way the grid is designed. And that's really what makes it simple for you to then just fold along the lines between the tiles and stitch using a 1/4-inch seam allowance by machine along each fold. And you do that for all the seams going in one direction first. And then you're going to be opening up those seam allowances and pressing them flat. It looks a bit strange at this stage, but what you're going to do next is simply fold again in the opposite direction and stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance going the other way to complete the block. And again, the seam allowances on that are pressed open, and the block is ready to go into a project. Here I've put the block into a small little mug rug, but you could put it into any other number of projects. For example, here I've done 30 blocks and put them into a quilt. You could also make handbags with mini mosaics, such as these two, and here's a big one that's a laptop bag. The other thing that you could do, of course, is to make a variety of cushions using mini mosaics, or smaller quilts, or any number of small-scale quilted projects. I hope you enjoy the book.